Today is the day. The day you will muster up the courage to talk to that cute barista you order your coffee from every morning. You've played it out in your head. The look you'll give her, your smooth walk to the counter, and the perfect line that once delivered will have her hooked on you the way you're hooked on those pumpkin spice lattes. And then a wave of reality crashes down on you. As you place your order, you could barely get your cheesy pickup line out before she is calling the next customer in line. And to make matters worse, you forgot to ask for non-fat milk. This scenario is all too common because of the communication skills that men lack when it comes to talking to women. Lucky for you, we've gathered the top 7 tips for keeping a conversation going with a woman. Welcome to the Eros channel, your go-to source for all things love. If you've yet to subscribe, click our logo on the bottom right corner and let us be your guide through the exhilarating and often complex world of love, relationships, and intimacy. Now let's dive into our list of the top 7 tips for keeping a conversation going with a woman. Tip number 1. Don't be afraid of silence. An awkward silence is the number 1 killer of conversations. Since childhood, humans are trained to speak constantly, and that silence should be avoided. We are taught that if several seconds go by without anyone speaking, the conversation is as good as dead. However, if you can train yourself to resist these primal instincts, you can reach a new level in your socialization skills. There is no other act that displays more confidence during a conversation than being able to power through a silent moment without making it awkward or calling it quits. Make eye contact and give her your best smile. This will ease the tension and show her you're still interested and in it to win it. Exuding confidence and calm will put you both at ease and reassure her that the momentary silence is nothing to be afraid of. If you succeed in calming yourself, the conversation will continue organically. Begin to train your brain to not jump ship during these moments of silence. The next time you're speaking to a woman and you both temporarily go silent, simply calm yourself and reassure yourself that it's okay. Tip number 2. Practice, practice, practice. If you truly want to become skilled in something, you must practice. No matter what the task is, repetition will inadvertently iron out the kinks and build your confidence. And let's face it, confidence is half the battle when it comes to speaking to a woman. Perfect the skill of conversation by speaking to everyone you can. When you're out in a store, market, event, start random conversations with random strangers. See how far you can take them and what feedback you get. The pressure of speaking to a stranger you're not interested in will be much less than if you're speaking to a woman you're attracted to. And without this fear of rejection, you'll truly be able to concentrate and build your conversation skills, being mindful of the thoughts you're communicating. If you really want to take it to the next level, take a class in public speaking. The confidence you will gain will directly transfer over into your conversations with women. Tip number 3. Shields down. Another huge hurdle that guys face when they speak to women is their internal conversation filter. As men speak to women, they simultaneously edit, filter, and remove certain thoughts and statements from the conversation, in fear that the woman will not like or approve for whatever reason. This process creates a very rigid conversation that comes off as ingenuine and serious. To make matters worse, women have great intuition and can usually detect you're holding something back, which is not the greatest first impression. As difficult as it may be at first, you must learn to bring down the shields and remove your filter if you want to keep a conversation going with a woman. Once you begin to speak your mind without the fear of rejection, you will come off more sincere and respectable. Of course, we're not suggesting you make extremely controversial or offensive statements. However, you should feel free to state your opinions and display your unique personality. Experts suggest that 70 to 93% of communication is verbal, so she is much more likely to be put off by your delivery than the actual statements themselves. With that in mind, it is much more beneficial to speak smoothly, confidently, and unfiltered than to be restrained by fear. Tip number 4. Nobody cares. This may sound harsh, but nobody cares what you have to say about yourself. Okay, maybe she cares a little, Or maybe she'll care in the future if a relationship develops. But for now, this is what you should recite to yourself when you're talking to a woman and you feel like you might be talking about yourself a bit too much. There are two conflicting human traits that make conversation difficult. Number one, we humans love to talk about ourselves. And number two, we want people to listen to us talk about ourselves. You could see how this can be a problem. When speaking to a woman, you must make it about her. Of course, if she asks a question about you, you should answer. However, at the end of the conversation, she should walk away feeling like she was the main idea or topic of the conversation. Be sure to ask her questions and show genuine interest in her answers. Compliments also work well in this regard, but make sure to leave them for later on in the conversation and make them unique to her. No cliche pickup lines here. You must navigate a fine line by asking her questions, but not making her feel like she's on a 60 minutes interview. Do this by using follow-up questions. In other words, don't ask her a series of unrelated questions, one after another after another. Instead, once she's telling you something about herself, use whatever statement she makes to formulate your follow-up questions. And now that we've covered how important it is to make it about her, we come to tip number 5, open-ended questions. If you find yourself asking a series of questions that only requires a yes or no or one-word answer, know you are headed for the conversation apocalypse. For example, instead of asking, "Did you like being an only child?" you should be asking, "How did it feel growing up as an only child?" And instead of asking, "Do you like your job?" ask, "What do you like about where you work?" Open-ended questions will demonstrate you are genuinely interested and not avoiding lengthy answers. They will also reward you with more complex answers that will give you even more context to further the conversation. Be careful not to make your questions so vague that it becomes a chore for her to answer. Some other great open-ended questions you could use include, what was the best part of your week? What's the thing you most want to do with your life? What's the most interesting place you've traveled to? What's your one biggest pet peeve and why? Tip number 6, don't interrupt. Constantly interrupting will get you nowhere fast during a conversation with a woman. Unfortunately, interrupting is another one of those nasty conversation killers that is hardwired into our brains, rather than actively listening to the person they are speaking to. We do it so automatically and unconsciously that it actually takes a bit of effort and even training to reverse the instinct. You may think it's a good strategy because you're preparing the best version of your next statement, but it actually does the opposite. A woman who is constantly cut off so she could hear your comment about her statement will quickly lose interest. Don't be afraid to miss an opportunity to comment by allowing her to continue to speak. Simply place your thought in your mental reserve and use it at a later time in the conversation to keep it afloat. As difficult as it may be at first, place your mind at ease and actively listen to her. Only interrupting by repeating her last few words to show her that you're listening or to ask her a question about the topic she is speaking about. Mastering this skill will place you well above the competition when it comes to speaking to a woman. Tip number 7, be yourself. This final tip is easier said than done, but it's the simplest of all. When talking to a woman, be yourself. We often get so caught up in trying to portray the image that we think women want that we miss the mark completely. This ingenuine tactic does not work for 2 reasons. Number 1, you will not be able to keep up this false identity forever. And number 2, women want confidence. And you cannot exude confidence if you're constantly trying to be someone you're not. Next time you speak to a woman, take a chance and be true to yourself. You might be surprised at the outcome. And now that you're armed with our tips on keeping a conversation going with a woman, get out there and put them to use. Please don't forget to subscribe, and as always, remember to love yourself first.